Hi everybody. I want to talk today about managing your energy and time. This is about making the best out of your life. So this is one of the few times in this video where I'm going to be using some notes, so please bear with me as I occasionally look down and I'm not looking at the camera. You know, it matters a lot to me that I make eye contact with you, but this is one of the times where I really do need the notes to keep me focused in what I'm wanting to say to you. I have 3 computer screens. Now, you don't need to have 3 computer screens to make this work, but with the 3 computer screens, on the screen on the bottom left, I always keep a notepad opened as my to-do list. And I would honestly encourage you to either have something on the computer where your to-do list is, or have a traditional notepad so you can systematically think through what your thoughts are and keep yourself focused, keep yourself engaged in life. And we all have the bad day, or we all have a day where we just need to pause, rest, spend time with friends, or just taking it easy so our bodies and our minds are renewed. But overall, having a to-do list is to help keep you focused. So if I get up and I'm not feeling great from my knees, I've already done the thinking ahead of time, and the to-do list will keep me focused on what I'm aiming for and help me to not waste, groups of days or groups of weeks on end. This really has been one of the strategies that's worked really, really well for me. What I wanted to talk about in this video is how I get an item on my to-do list, how I evaluate if it should be on the list, and if it's worthy of being on the list. I don't want to be just doing stuff because there's the possibility of it. If I did that, it would lead, it would overextend what I'm able to do. I suppose in a way what I'm telling you or what I'm giving you in this video is the skill set of being self-aware, or a component of being self-aware. So there's 3 main filters, if I could call it filters, or 3 main tests if an item is worthy of being on my to-do list. So the first is mindful. What I mean by mindful is this something that matches what I'm aiming for in the big picture in my life? Does this fit into, I guess you could say, my life mission or my life vision statement? I'm not talking about things like brushing your teeth, but the stuff once your personal health and hygiene's been taken care of. And by mindful, it also means that I'm not shadowing someone else's life. I made a big exception to this when my aunt was dying from her from her ovarian cancer, my mistake. But you want to be mindful that you're living your life while you still have engagement with the people that you know, the friendships that you've developed and have nurtured. And you don't want to sacrifice those friendships because, once you've got about 3 or 4 people that you can be very honest with and transparent of what you're doing with your life, and you don't feel ashamed to share what's been going on in your life, what you're able to accomplish significantly increases. It's that emotional reliance and dependence and affirmation from someone else that helps us as people perform better and perform better under stress. I really can never undermine and understate the value of having and building meaningful friendships. They aren't something that you just, if this is a new person I'm meeting and this is me, you don't all of a sudden become all chummy together and, talk. It takes time to build those up. But it's about being mindful of, birthdays, weddings, special events like a promotion at work, or if a friend tells you they've got COVID, checking on them 2 or 3 days later to see how they're feeling, and if there's something that they need that you could perhaps order from Walmart.ca or Amazon and you'll get to them. So it's about being a good friend, and from those friendships, we really do perform better in life where you're not alone and feeling vulnerable and kind of getting paralyzed from being vulnerable. Now, the second tier, if it passes the mindful state, the second one is manage. And what I mean by manage is, can you do the task that you're aiming for? You don't automatically have to be able to do it all by yourself. But if you aim to start something, is it viable that you're going to be able to bring it to completion? You may need help along the way. So if we use this in terms of computer programming, you might need to look up how a command works. Or if you think about this in building materials, you normally use 2 people, to lift pieces of drywall together. Or where you're lifting something heavy and it takes 2 people to lift it up. But overall, can you manage the task that you're aiming to do? Now, there can be a tangent on this where you're learning something new, and there really isn't anything wrong with learning something new. But then that learning is going to become a component in the time and effort that you're spending on that particular item on your to-do list. And so the expectation of the block of time that needs, if there's a learning component to it, then needs to grow to encompass it. I've nothing against learning and challenging ourselves, but being realistic in what you're doing so your to-do list doesn't become overwhelming, out of control, or it's only growing longer. And then the third word is budget. So in a very real sense, what is it going to take in terms of time, energy, resources, and effort? I sort of make effort as a separate category because of my physical disability. Meaning, if I have to pace it over a few days, I tend to run 2 projects or 3 projects concurrently, some computer-based and some that are more physical, where I'm still running at my most that I'm capable of. So can you put the resources into a given project that will bring it to completion? Now, I'm not saying when you start something you have to bring it to completion. You don't want to get so far down a project that you realize you can't change directions, or it's just not working, and be honest with yourself that you need to try a different method or abandon it. But what you want to start out with is something that's viable and that you could work your way through it. I wanted to talk a minute about the order of completion when you're setting up your to-do list. If you find that you have a lot of items on your to-do list, you might consider getting the easiest project done first, where it's either short or it's straightforward, or you don't have any learning involved, and you just sort of dive in, spend the time on it, and it's done, and that's one less thing weighing on you. When I talk about having a to-do list on my computer screen, that means that I'm not memorizing it and keeping mental track of it, and the mental gymnastics of trying to concurrently keep a list running in my head while working on them doesn't let me get as much done. So keeping it wrote down as a list works out really well for me. So doing one easiest at the start might make sense, and seeing something brought to completion might just give you the moral courage to keep trucking along in the other items that you're trying to accomplish. Another way of looking at this is doing the most important one first. Like if there's something with a deadline, let's say filing your income taxes, and it's time sensitive, that may become the one that you focus on first to bring to completion. So overall, the questions I need to leave you with are, is my to-do list right? Only you are going to know the answer to this. Perhaps you could talk this over with a friend, and I'm not suggesting you not do so, but at the end of this, you need to be able to make a decisive decision, yes or no. And if the answer is no, could it be tweaked to match your life? Or if it's just no and it's not worthy of it, worthy of your time and your effort and money or energy put into it, that's okay. But you want to make sure that it's right and that it belongs in your life. I think you need to give a little bit of thought to your routine. So when you decide to shower or bath, when you're brushing your teeth, grocery shopping, laundry, dusting and sweeping the floors, all those parts that come into being a person and alive, and the mundane, nitty-gritty chores that we all have to endure, and how they're going to fit into your life and how you're going to schedule them. I've got one of those robot vacuums that sweeps the floor for me, and with that robot, it lets me do more in my day-to-day life and makes it easier for me because I'm not exerting myself doing that task, so I'm freeing up some time by having spent the money on it, and it's in exchange for doing other things. There's pros and cons to all this, of course. If you're wanting to sweep the floors, I'm not telling you not to. But for me, this was a really good trade-off where technology was able to make my life a little bit easier. I also wanted to suggest that if you are in a situation where you have a physical disability or a mental illness, that you objectively consider if you're needing practical help and what that help is. So if you're going to dive into some deep cleaning, like spring cleaning, do you need someone there with you to ask if the items have been used recently, if they're functional in your life, if they're worth the effort to keep clean and dusted, or if that season of your life has passed and it's time to dispose of it or donate it so someone else could benefit from using it. The final thing that I want to leave this video with is to give some overall thought to working towards not feeling like you're firefighting and effectively being on autopilot because your to-do list has grown too large. And this is sort of where those three categories of being mindful and manage and budget come into. So you're only taking on the things that you are wanting and needing to do. And effectively not to become a savior and not taking on other people's problems repeatedly. So that's what I had for today's video. It's been longer than I had expected it to be. I hope some of this will stick with you for where you're at right now in life. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. I hope each of you are doing well. Bye for now.